It's 1912. The world is experiencing what historians call the Belle Époque, a beautiful era of peace, prosperity, and technological marvels. The Titanic has just set sail, promising to be unsinkable. These individuals were mapping out the exact scenarios that would lead to a global catastrophe. They didn't just predict that war would come, they predicted how it would start. They had access to classified diplomatic cables, military spending reports, and industrial production data that painted a terrifying picture. He discovered that Germany had been conducting detailed surveys of Belgian railway systems, ostensibly for trade purposes, but actually for military logistics. Another member, economist J.A. Wells, published novels that depicted future wars with uncanny accuracy. Webb used her political connections to brief cabinet members. Lord Roberts gave speeches warning of German military preparations. Hobson calculated that the current rate of military spending by European powers was unsustainable. The prevailing belief was that modern civilization had evolved beyond such barbarism. Their members, scattered to various war efforts, were broken by the magnitude of the catastrophe they had foreseen. Some, like Wells, spent the rest of their lives advocating for international institutions to prevent future conflicts. Others retreated from public life. I is unjust about historical curiosity. It's a masterclass in the power of interdisciplinary analysis, the danger of collective denial, and the tragic gap between knowledge and action. These individuals possessed the intellectual courage to see past the optimistic narratives of their time and confront uncomfortable truths about human nature and international relations. Haunted by their accurate prophecies, the patterns are there, waiting to be recognized by those willing to look beyond comfortable assumptions. The question is, unto whether there are people today who can see what is coming. It is whether we are wise enough to listen to them, for it is too late. The Coefficients Club members didn't express shock or surprise. Remember the Coefficients Club? Remember that sometimes the most important voices are the ones that dare to whisper uncomfortable truths, while everyone else is celebrating the dawn of a peaceful tomorrow. According to surviving private letters, several members immediately began contacting family members, advising them to liquidate European investments and prepare for prolonged conflict. Are their brilliant minds quietly analyzing current trends and reaching conclusions that would shock us? Perhaps most importantly, when experts warn of future catastrophes, whether pandemic, climate change, or geopolitical conflict, do we listen? Or do we dismiss them as our predecessors dismissed the warnings of 1912? The economic argument was particularly powerful. How could nations that traded millions of pounds worth of goods annually possibly go to war with each other? It would inevitably lead to a catastrophic release of tensions. German steel production was skyrocketing. Government officials who had previously dismissed their warnings began seeking their counsel, but by then it was too late. The mechanisms they had identified were already in motion, and the world was sliding toward an abyss. In 1910, 2 full years before the Balkan Wars even began, the Society estimated that a European conflict would result in approximately 8 to 10 million military deaths and another 6 to 8 million civilian casualties. When World War I ended in 1918, the actual numbers were devastatingly close to their estimates. The Anglo-German naval arms race was intensifying. Most ominously, they noticed that European powers were quietly stockpiling ammunition and medical supplies far beyond peacetime needs. Which nations would be involved? Unlike government officials who were constrained by diplomatic niceties, the Coefficients Club included journalists who traveled freely across borders, businessmen who saw the economic tensions firsthand, and retired military officers who understood strategic realities without political pressure, and even estimated how many would die. Nations are trading freely, and optimistic voices declare that war between civilized countries is now impossible due to economic interdependence, aerial bombing of cities, submarine warfare against civilian ships, and the use of machine guns that would make traditional cavalry charges suicidal. Military member Colonel Charles Repington even sketched out trench systems that would span from the North Sea to Switzerland. A prediction that proved prophetic when the Western Front became exactly that. But in the shadows of Europe, a small group of intellectuals, diplomats, and military strategists are quietly preparing for something they believe is inevitable. The most devastating war the world has ever seen. This wasn't just any group of pessimists or doomsayers. This was a secret network that would later be known as the Coefficients Club, though that name barely scratches the surface of their true influence. Founded in London by author H.G. Wells and sociologist Beatrice Webb, this society included some of the most brilliant minds of their time: military strategists, economists, politicians, and even future prime ministers. They met monthly in unmarked dining rooms, their discussions never recorded in official minutes, their predictions shared only among themselves. Here's what makes this story extraordinary. While the rest of the world celebrated peace, the year was 1908 when their most chilling prediction was made. During one of their clandestine meetings, military analyst Lord Roberts presented what he called the continental scenario, described a world where a single assassination in the Balkans would trigger alliance systems like falling dominoes. Austria-Hungary would mobilize against Serbia. Russia would defend its Slavic ally. Germany would honor its commitment to Austria. France would be drawn in through its alliance with Russia and Britain. Britain would enter when Germany violated Belgian neutrality, a move Roberts predicted with startling accuracy. The Society's members didn't just rely on political intuition. What made this group so remarkably prescient was their unique composition. One member, journalist Leo Max, had been tracking the German General Staff's war plans since 1906. Through his network of European contacts, perhaps the most haunting aspect of their predictions was their accuracy regarding casualties. They also predicted technological horrors that seemed like science fiction at the time: poison gas attacks. The most tragic element of this story is that they were right. That they tried to warn people. Several members attempted to influence government policy, but here's the cruel irony. Their warnings were dismissed as warmongering or scaremongering. On June 28, 1914, when news reached London that Archduke Franz Ferdinand had been assassinated in Sarajevo, within weeks, as their predictions unfolded with terrifying precision, the Coefficients Club disbanded during the war, but their story raises profound questions that resonate today in our interconnected world. Are there modern equivalents of the Coefficients Club, the story of the secret society that predicted world war? Their legacy reminds us that the future, while uncertain, is not unknowable. The next time you hear an expert warning about seemingly distant threats,